6 months postpartum, and my client could barely get off the couch. Her OB told her it was normal to feel that way, but her labs told a different story. Disclaimer, yes, I am a physician assistant, but this video is for educational purposes only, should not be taken as medical advice. Please always consult with your provider before making any changes to your health supplements or medications. If you've had a baby in the last year and you're still waiting to feel like yourself again, this video is for you. Postpartum care in this country is genuinely embarrassing. You get a 6 week check in, maybe a TSH, and then you're released back into mom life and told to call if something feels off. The problem is, by the time something feels genuinely off in order for you to go back in, you've probably been depleted for months. Today, I'm walking you through what postnatal depletion is, the labs your OB almost never runs in the fourth trimester, why postpartum thyroiditis keeps getting misdiagnosed as anxiety and depression, what breastfeeding does to your hormones, and how to start eating and moving in a way that actually rebuilds you. Save this video, send it to a friend that just had a baby. Stay with me through the end because the lab section is where most of you are going to find your answer, okay? So let me anchor this with a real case here. We will call her Megan, 33 years old, first baby. She came to me 8 months postpartum, still breastfeeding, telling me she felt off in a way that she couldn't really describe. So she was tired, coffee didn't help, her hair was shedding. She was anxious during the day, but couldn't fall asleep at night, even when the baby was sleeping better. Her OB ran a TSH at the 6 week visit, called it normal at 3.9, didn't check anything else. By the time she got to me, we saw her ferritin was 11. Her vitamin D was 18. Her free T3 was absolute bottom of the range. She had positive TPO antibodies, and she was basically a textbook postnatal depletion case with early postpartum thyroiditis layered on top. Her doctor had missed it. Let's break down why this actually happens. Number one, postnatal depletion is real, and it's bigger than most people think. It is a term for the nutrient and hormonal hole that pregnancy and breastfeeding leaves you in. Your body just spent 9 months building a human and is now actively trying to make milk for that human. The data is wild on this. Pregnancy alone can drop your iron stores by up to 50%. It's going to pull calcium, magnesium, B12, folate, choline, omega 3s, iodine, zinc, DHA out of you and into the baby. If you're breastfeeding, that drain continues. Breast milk stays nutrient dense even when you're bottoming out. There's published work suggesting it can take a woman 2 to 3 years to fully replenish what one pregnancy uses up. Most women are not actively replenishing. They're basically surviving on leftovers and coffee while trying to run a household and having a newborn. Your friend bounced back and you didn't, largely because what nutrient stores you went into pregnancy with versus what they did. If you went in already low, you're going to come out even lower. Number two, the fourth trimester labs that nobody runs. This is the panel that I'm going to run on every postpartum client, and almost none of these are ordered standardly. So a full thyroid panel, so we're looking at TSH, T4, free T3, reverse T3, TPO antibodies, thyroglobulin antibodies. 6 week TSH check is genuinely useless. It misses both postpartum thyroiditis and a slow conversion process that we see in a lot of depleted moms. So for iron studies, I want to look at ferritin, serum iron, TIBC, and transferrin saturation. Hemoglobin alone can look normal even if your ferritin is super low. So I want postpartum ferritin above 50, but ideally we want to see it in the range of 70 to 100. A ferritin of 15 is hair shedding, anxious for no reason ferritin, and OB will release you with a ferritin like that. Vitamin D, optimally we want to see that 50 to 80. Most women I see, they come in their levels like 18 to 25. B12 and folate. A B12 under 500, even though it's flagged as normal anywhere above 200, that is going to correlate with postpartum brain fog, mood issues, and often you can have numbness issues like tingling in your hands or feet. So if you have MTHFR variant, you need methylated B12 and methylfolate, not the synthetic stuff that's in a cheap prenatal. Sex hormones, if your cycle has returned. So I want to look at estradiol, progesterone, FSH, LH, mid-luteal progesterone, especially if your menstrual periods have come back, is if your progesterone is sitting at a 4, that's why you can't sleep. That's why you're anxious. That's why your cycle is irregular and debilitating. A basic metabolic panel plus fasting insulin and HbA1c. So, postpartum insulin resistance is a thing, especially if you had gestational diabetes or a PCOS history. I want to look at magnesium RBC, so not serum. Serum magnesium can look fine while your tissue magnesium is depleted. Most postpartum women I check for this, they're low. 3 is postpartum thyroiditis. It's very common. So this hits about 5 to 10% of women in the first year after giving birth. That's up to 1 in 10. It often shows up as hyperthyroid first. So you might feel jittery, anxious, your heart is racing, you lose weight quickly, and you can't sleep. And then that phase usually will get misdiagnosed as just postpartum anxiety. And often women are sent home with an SSRI. Then after that, it will often flip to hypothyroid, so low functioning thyroid. So now you're going to notice you're exhausted, gaining weight, you have hair shedding, you're cold all the time, you're constipated, you're depressed. That phase often misdiagnosed as postpartum depression, or maybe you're just tired, you just had a baby, and you're just sent on your way. The thing that gets missed, a portion of women who develop postpartum thyroiditis don't recover spontaneously. They go on to have permanent Hashimoto or permanent autoimmune thyroid issues. So, this is genuinely worth testing early. The test is simple. You need a full thyroid panel with antibodies. If you have felt anxious, then exhausted with no clear pattern, ask for that panel before you're just given a psych diagnosis or psych medications. Number 4, breastfeeding does a very interesting thing to your hormones. So if you're breastfeeding, your hormones are basically complete opposite of pregnancy. Prolactin is high, estrogen is low, progesterone is also low, and often your ovulation is going to be suppressed if you're breastfeeding very consistently. This is by design. Your body is prioritizing milk over getting pregnant again. So the downstream effects can be hard. Low estrogen means you could have vaginal dryness, painful sex, joint pain, mood drops, brain fog. High prolactin can suppress thyroid function and also tank your libido. And then add on top of that, you have sleep deprivation and nutrient depletion. And you have a physiological setup that's not going to feel good unless you add in intentional support. So, a lot of women, they hear breastfeeding is amazing for you and the baby. Yes, absolutely it is. It is amazing for the baby, of course. But don't assume that you're going to feel amazing during this time period. It can be hard on you, especially if you're not eating enough, sleeping enough, or replenishing with what is being pulled out of your body. So you can absolutely breastfeed and feel good. You just have to feed yourself like you are feeding two people because you are. Number 5, this is when baby blues aren't actually just baby blues anymore. So, by clinical definition, this is when you have mood drop the first 1 to 2 weeks postpartum. You can feel tearful, overwhelmed, and it tends to lift as your hormones settle. So, if you're 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months out, and you're still feeling very flat, anxious, ragey, numb, or you have intrusive thoughts, that is something else. Postpartum depression affects about 1 in 7 women. Postpartum anxiety is even more common and gets diagnosed less. Postpartum OCD with intrusive thoughts, that is real and often underdiagnosed. And a chunk of these are downstream of the things we already covered. So think about things like low ferritin, low vitamin D, low B12, low thyroid, underdiagnosed thyroiditis, very low progesterone, blood sugar all over the place from not eating enough, and then sleep deprived nervous system puts you back in that fight or flight. I am not anti-medication. SSRIs do have a place for certain people, but what I am going to fight for is that nobody should be put on a psychiatric medication for postpartum mood without first looking at the labs that we looked at. Okay, so if your ferritin is 11, your TPO antibodies are high, your free T3 is bottom of the range, and your vitamin D is an 18, an SSRI is 100% a band-aid solution. It is not addressing the underlying issues. Address the underlying physiology, and many women feel like themselves again without ever even needing an SSRI. If you've been told that you have postpartum depression and the only intervention offered was a prescription, please ask for blood work first. Number six, nutrition during postpartum and what to actually eat. Postpartum, this is not the time to diet. Often you have just given birth, and of course, you want to lose the baby weight. I understand that. But what you'll see is women, they're 8 weeks postpartum, they're eating 1,400 calories while they're breastfeeding, and then they're wondering why their hair is falling out and they have no energy at all. This is what I want you eating: protein at every meal, so target around 30 to 40 grams per meal, total of 100 to 140 grams daily. If you're breastfeeding, push to the high end of that. Animal protein is the most bioavailable source of healthy amino acids and protein: iron, B12, zinc. So you need all these things to rebuild your depletion. So think about things like eggs, salmon, beef liver, if you can tolerate it, chicken thighs, sardines. Healthy fats at every meal. So you want to think about egg yolks, butter, ghee, olive oil, avocado, fatty fish. Your postpartum brain runs on fats. Cholesterol is the building block of every hormone that you're trying to make again. The low fat postpartum mom is basically the depleted mom. Carbs are not the enemy postpartum, especially if you're breastfeeding. So try things like sweet potato, regular potato, white rice, oats, fruit, vegetables. The amount of carbs is going to vary dependent on your activity level and your baseline metabolism when you went into pregnancy. Cutting carbs while breastfeeding is going to tank your milk supply and your thyroid. Mineral rich foods specifically. So bone broth, excellent. Add sea salt to your food. You need the sodium more than you realize. Cooked greens are a lot easier to digest than raw vegetables. Pumpkin seeds, almonds, spinach, dark chocolate for magnesium. I recommend continuing a real prenatal through breastfeeding, ideally one that has methylfolate and methylated B12, not just a cheap drugstore prenatal. I keep clients on a high quality prenatal for at least 12 months postpartum, sometimes 18 if they're breastfeeding. You want to hydrate with electrolytes, not just water. So, especially if you're breastfeeding, plain water without minerals can actually push your sodium and your potassium lower. Number seven is movement and rebuilding with your OB's blessing. So, little disclaimer here: always get cleared with your OB before starting any or returning back to exercise, especially if you had a C-section, a tear, a prolapse, or any complications. Diastasis recti and pelvic floor dysfunction are very common and need to be addressed before you start loading the body with heavy weights again. Pelvic floor PT is one of the best investments postpartum women can make, and it's massively underused in this country. Once you're cleared, this is the order of operations that I would support. Number one is walking. So just daily, 20 to 45 minutes, low intensity. Ideally, you want to do it outside, ideally with sunlight on your skin. This is going to regulate your cortisol, support circulation, and rebuild capacity without really taxing the body. Two is going to be breath and core work, diaphragmatic breathing, gentle core reconnection. So think about like 360 breathing, pelvic floor stability. Most women postpartum, they have a disconnected core and pelvic floor. And if you're crunching too early, that can actually make diastasis worse. Strength training is going to come third. So ideally, maybe doing this 2 to 3 times a week. You could start with something like full body compound lifts. That way you're getting, moderate intensity of all of your muscles working. So squats, deadlift, row, presses with usually manageable weight. Strength training is one of the best things that you can do postpartum. It's going to rebuild your bone density, which often does drop during breastfeeding. It supports insulin sensitivity. It helps you build lean muscle mass back. It supports your nervous system. I would completely skip the high intensity HIIT training and like the boot camp style classes completely, honestly, altogether, but especially for the first 6 months postpartum. That kind of training is just going to spike your cortisol. It doesn't really provide you with all that many benefits, and you already have dysregulated cortisol from sleep deprivation. Nervous system work the entire time. You can do that immediately after you give birth. So down regulation matters just as much as the workout itself. So slow nasal breathing, getting outside, putting your phone down for an hour before bedtime, magnesium glycinate before bed. Again, if your provider okays it, Postpartum recovery happens in a parasympathetic state. If you stay completely sympathetic driven, your body is going to prioritize survival over rebuilding. All right, let's tie it back to that client, Megan. We ran her panel. We supplemented her iron and vitamin D pretty aggressively. We started her on a true prenatal with methylated Bs. We added thyroid supportive protocol, given her positive antibodies, and we restructured her meals to actually feed a breastfeeding mom. We got her sleeping in 4-hour blocks instead of 90-minute blocks. She was back to strength training about 4 months postpartum. And by 6 months of work, her ferritin was at 78. Her hair stopped shedding. Her anxiety lifted. Her mood was back. Nothing about her treatment was honestly very extreme. She was just genuinely very depleted, and somebody finally tested the right things for her. The fourth trimester is supposed to be an entire year. Most women get 6 months of care and a thumbs up, and that's it. If that's where you're at, this is your sign that being just a tired mom is not a diagnosis. Your physiology can be measured. Your symptoms can be traced to the root cause, and you can feel like yourself again even if you have a newborn. If you've been told you're fine and you know you're not, this is exactly what we do at TCY: functional blood work, functional thyroid panels, mineral and nutrient testing, and a real protocol built off of that. So we work with postpartum women nationwide. Virtually, we run the labs that your OB maybe didn't. Click the link in the description to book a free initial call with my team. If this video helped you, save it, share it with a friend. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one.